I never expected my peaceful suburban life to turn into a chilling tale of betrayal and maternal judgment. It all started when my new neighbor, Karen, steals my baby because I'm a bad mother for using formula. Here's how it all went down. The day I moved into the street of Willow Bend, I had no inkling that my life was about to become a plot for a suburban thriller. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind that made you grateful for new beginnings. I was balancing my infant son, Joey, on my hip as I unpacked another box labeled kitchen stuff when she first appeared. Karen, my next-door neighbor, was the embodiment of every manicured lawn and casserole recipe-swapping stereotype of the neighborhood. "Hi there! I'm Karen from next door. Welcome to Willow Bend." She greeted me with a smile that was a little too wide to be entirely sincere. "Thank you. It's quite a change from the city," I replied, trying to mirror her enthusiasm. Karen peeked at Joey, who was fussing a bit as if on cue. "Oh, precious. Breastfeeding, I hope?" I hesitated, sensing a landmine. "Well, actually, we're using formula. I had some issues with—" She cut me off with a sharp wave of her hand. No. Formula is bad for babies, dear. I raised my 3 on breast milk alone. Much healthier." I plastered on a polite smile. "Well, to each their own, right?" Karen didn't push further, but her disapproving gaze lingered on the can of formula as she eventually walked away. That should have been my first warning. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and endless chores. Karen, however, became a constant in my life, always popping up with unsolicited advice. It was exhausting, but I chalked it up to neighborly concern, until the day she crossed an unfathomable line. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when I did the weekly grocery run. I had just put Joey down for a nap and was in the basement tossing a load of laundry into the washer when I heard it, the front door creaking open. Panic surged through me. I sprinted upstairs, my heart pounding in my ears. The front door was ajar and Joey's room was empty. I searched frantically, my mind racing with terrifying possibilities, until I saw Karen through her living room window holding my son. She was feeding him, but it wasn't his formula. I flew out of my house and banged on Karen's door. "Karen, open up! What are you doing with my baby?" She opened the door, a picture of faux innocence. "Oh, darling, I heard him crying and thought you could use a break. And don't worry, I'm giving him some homemade puree. Formula isn't good for him, you know." My hands were shaking. "Give me my son now!" After a tense moment where I thought she might refuse, she handed Joey over, her eyes cold and judgmental. "I'm just trying to help! You should be more careful!" I clutched Joey to my chest, not trusting myself to speak. That night, I installed new locks and a security system. It was the climax of our neighborly relationship, the point where I knew I had to set strict boundaries. In the following days, I avoided Karen, but she seemed to have a different plan. I would find pamphlets about the benefits of breastfeeding in my mailbox, and once, a book titled The Dangers of Formula Feeding perched on my doorstep. I decided it was time for a confrontation. I walked over to her house, my nerves steeling with every step. She opened the door, her smile faltering when she saw my determined face. "Karen, we need to talk," I started, my voice firmer than I felt. "What you did the other day, taking Joey without my permission, that was inexcusable. I'm using formula, and that's my choice as his mother. You need to respect that, and my privacy." Karen's face hardened. "I was just looking out for the well-being of the child. If you were—" "No, Karen," I cut her off, my patience fraying. "You overstepped in a major way. It's not going to happen again." I could see the retort forming on her lips, but I didn't stick around to hear it. I walked away, my spine straight, my message clear. Karen and I had reached an impasse, and while I didn't relish the tension, I knew my son's safety and my choices were non-negotiable. The fallout from our clash was immediate. Karen became an icy fixture, barely acknowledging my existence. It was uncomfortable, sure, but preferable to her intrusive behavior. As weeks turned into months, the incident became a cold ember in the past. Karen kept her distance, and I found my rhythm as a mother, confident in my choices. Joey thrived on formula, his giggles a testament to his health and happiness. It was a silent victory every time I saw him reach a new milestone. I began to make friends with other neighbors, ones who didn't judge my parenting style. We'd chat casually as our kids played in the front yards, our conversations a mix of daily trivialities and shared experiences. The neighborhood was friendly, with people always ready to lend a hand or a cup of sugar. One breezy afternoon, as I pushed Joey in his stroller, Karen approached, a hesitant figure this time. I braced myself for another unsolicited piece of advice, but her demeanor was different. "Hey," she said, a softness in her voice I hadn't heard before. "Hi, Karen," I replied, cautiously optimistic. "I've been thinking about what happened, about what I did," she started, looking anywhere but at me. "I was out of line. It wasn't my place. I'm sorry." I was taken aback. Apologies were as rare as a full night's sleep in those days. "Thank you, Karen. That means a lot. I saw you and the other moms how you all support each other. It made me realize that I was the one being a bad neighbor, not you a bad mother," she admitted. It was an unexpected turn, the kind of falling action that followed the high drama of our earlier encounters. "We all do what we think is best for our kids, Karen. I appreciate your apology." Karen nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "If you ever need anything, even just to vent about the sleepless nights, I'm here." "I'll keep that in mind," I said, and I meant it. From that day on, things changed between us. We never became close friends, but the animosity was gone. Karen would wave when I passed by, and sometimes we'd exchange pleasantries about the weather or the latest neighborhood gossip. I learned a lot from the whole ordeal with Karen. I learned about setting boundaries, about standing up for my choices as a parent, and about forgiveness. I also learned that community wasn't just about living next to each other, but about understanding and respecting our differences. Joey continued to grow, each day a little more independent than the last. And as I watched him play in the yard, surrounded by friends, and bathed in the golden light of the setting sun, I felt a profound sense of peace. The days of Karen watching disapprovingly from her window were over. Instead, there was a new understanding, a mutual respect that hadn't been there before. It was the casual, everyday life I had hoped for when I first moved to Willow Bend, a life where my choices as a mother were my own and where my son could thrive, formula-fed and all. Wow, what a roller coaster of a story. Karen really crossed the line, but it's great to see how things eventually turned around between her and the narrator. It's a reminder that understanding and respect can go a long way in building a supportive community. Kudos to the narrator for standing up for her choices as a mother and finding peace in her neighborhood. It all started when my 15-year-old daughter had a disturbing encounter at church. As tensions rose, a heated argument erupted, leaving me furious and shaken. But what happened next would reveal deeper family secrets and force me to question everything I thought I knew. Here's how it all went down. This is going to be a long story with a lot of backstory, but it's important for you to understand the situation. I apologize if I ramble, but this just happened, and I'm still so angry that I'm shaking. My husband and I have 4 kids, but this incident specifically involves our oldest daughter, Stella, who is 15 years old. We believe it's important for all our children to be involved in the community, so twice a month, our 2 oldest children, Stella, 15, and Owen, 14, serve as ushers at our local Catholic church alongside my dad. Their responsibilities include holding doors open for people entering the church, passing out the offertory baskets, and dismissing pews to allow people to get up and in line for communion. They do this together with my father, who is also an usher. This past Saturday was their turn to serve as ushers. My parents picked up all 4 kids and took them to church and dinner. When they got home, my husband and I were at a Halloween party. Stella texted me to let me know they were back home and watching a movie. She also asked me to send her some pictures of everyone's costumes. The next day, Stella told me that she no longer wanted to usher. She explained that while she was holding one of the doors open, an old man named Joseph, in his 80s, who was apparently very active in the church, approached her. He asked her to follow him and directed her to the main doors of the church to greet people. Throughout the encounter, he held her hand, asked about her age and relationship status, complimented her appearance while suggesting she should smile more. He then insisted that she smile at everyone entering the church, claimed he would be her boyfriend, and asked if she loved him. Stella expressed feeling very uncomfortable, but was unable to get anyone's attention for help. Additionally, he attempted to make her sit with him during Mass. After Stella shared all of this with me, I immediately called my mom to ask her what had happened because I hadn't heard anything from her, my dad, or Stella until that moment. She explained that Stella had mentioned feeling uncomfortable to my dad, who then told her that she didn't have to serve and could sit with my mom and her younger siblings during Mass. My mom informed me that she wasn't fully aware of everything that had transpired, but she knew that Stella was uncomfortable around the man. Now, on to the main part of the story. Last night, my brother came over to visit my husband for a while. While they were in the garage having a drink, my parents unexpectedly dropped by to bring candy for the kids. I hadn't spoken to my dad since I had learned about what had happened at church a few days earlier. After greeting my parents, I asked my dad if Joseph held any official position at the church. He replied with a no. I then inquired if he planned to speak to the head priest to make him aware of the situation, to which he said he would only do so if Joseph gave him any pushback. I argued that the priest should be made aware because we don't know if this is a pattern of behavior, if he has dementia or something other illness that causes him to not be in complete control of his actions or what. I just wanted the priest to be made aware so he could keep an eye out. My father argued back that Joseph is just a nice old man who got out of line because in this day, you can't be nice without it being taken the wrong way. Cue the head explosion. I told him that sweeping this behavior under the rug by just asking this old man for an apology and not saying anything else about it makes it possible for Jospe to behave this way with another girl. My father continued to argue his point and said that if he did what I was asking, the church would just prevent him from doing what he likes to do at church. I then very loudly told my dad that if being a fucking creep is what he enjoys doing, then maybe the church should prevent him from doing that, and told my parents they needed to leave. As my dad was walking out, he said sarcastically, "I'm sorry, I don't want to crucify the old man." I completely lost control, yelling at my father that I was sorry he cared more about some old man's feelings than his own granddaughter's. My brother then joined the argument, accusing me of being vengeful and trying to vilify the old man, claiming that what happened wasn't that big of a deal, all while standing just 3 feet away from Stella. I was so furious at this point that I started crying and shaking. I told my brother that he likes to act like he's the smartest person in the room, but he's actually a lazy piece of shit who indulges in conspiracy theories to justify his laziness. I called him a loser and told him to leave my house. My dad immediately went into damage control mode, apologizing for making me feel like my request was unreasonable or like I was personally attacking someone I've never even met. He promised to talk to the priest, and my mom, who was fully on my side, said they would always prioritize the safety of their grandchildren. I couldn't even look at my dad. I asked them to leave and said goodbye to my mom. I went back to the garage where my husband was and explained everything that had happened. Initially, I hadn't involved him in the conversation because I just wanted to get my family out of the house as quickly as possible. But when the argument started, I went into fight mode and didn't even think about getting my husband. He fully supports me and agrees that both my dad and brother are in the wrong. He's letting me take the lead on this since it's my family, but he will be there for any further discussions we have on the matter. So, am I asking for too much? Is it going too far to notify the authorities about what happened and vilify this man? I don't think so, but I can't understand my father and brother's perspective on this. Am I a jerk? I have an appointment with the priest tomorrow at 2. I will be going with my father because he was there, and Stella can decide for herself if she'd like to come. I will not force her. I'd like to address some of the more common comments I'm seeing. Many people have questioned why I waited for my dad to handle this instead of taking the lead and speaking to the head priest myself. I honestly thought I could count on him. I was harassed by a boyfriend in high school but never told anyone. I tried to suppress it for as long as I could, but 3 years later, I found myself in a bad situation in college, and while I wasn't harmed, it caused everything to come out. My father was beside himself. He wanted to harm the boy and felt so much guilt because he wasn't able to protect me. I honestly believed that the experience he had with me would make him act with much more urgency. Clearly, I was wrong. Regardless of that, I still should have been the one to handle this and shouldn't have waited for my dad. I also know that the Catholic Church has a poor record when it comes to sexual abuse. I love my faith and my religion, but I do have a lot of issues with the church itself. That being said, I've never been given any reason to doubt that my kids would be safe at church with my parents. They have many friends that they go to church with and are involved in youth group. I knew there was going to be some pushback simply because the initial situation happened at a Catholic church. I won't try to change anyone's mind, but I will say that my experience in the church up to this point has always been good. And I have found a lot of comfort in going to Mass, as have my children. I would never knowingly put my children in harm's way. To clarify, Stella wasn't alone at church. She was there with her grandparents, although they weren't standing right beside her the whole time. After holding the door open for Joseph, who uses a walker and couldn't open the door himself, he approached her. He asked her to follow him to another door just a few feet away to help distribute brochures for the Knights of Columbus. Stella found it a little strange, but considering that he was an elderly man with a walker and they were in church, she didn't think anything could go wrong. I understand that the Catholic Church has a poor record when it comes to sexual abuse, but the priest we met with is a good man whom I personally know. He married my husband and me, and I trust him to do the right thing. I'm not trying to change anyone's opinion about the church as I don't know what your experience has been. However, mine and my family's experiences have always been positive. Additionally, it's important to note that Joseph does not work for the church, nor does he lead any committees or volunteer organizations. He's just an eccentric old man who attends church every day and likes to be involved. So when I arrived at the meeting today, which I recorded on my phone, my father began by informing Father Thomas, FT, that during Mass last Saturday, Joseph had behaved inappropriately towards Stella, making her feel very uncomfortable. I interrupted and clarified that there was more to the situation. I proceeded to explain everything that Stella had shared with me. FT was shocked and horrified. It appears that there have been previous issues with Joseph, although nothing as serious as this. He has allegedly made statements suggesting that only members of the Knights of Columbus are true Catholics, but he was firmly reprimanded for such remarks. Additionally, he was asked to refrain from volunteering at the soup kitchen due to reports of him pressuring homeless individuals to convert to Catholicism. FT believes that Joseph clearly has some psychological problems, but there have been no prior complaints of this nature against him. My father attempted to suggest that at some point in Joseph's life, it might have been considered normal to speak to women in that manner. My mother, FT, Father Thomas, and I all vehemently disagreed and stated that it has never been acceptable for an elderly man or anyone else to speak or behave that way towards any woman, regardless of age. FT asked me what I was seeking, and I explained that I wanted to ensure the safety of all the young women in the parish and prevent any other girl from being put in the same position as Stella. I also suggested that since elderly people sometimes have their driver's licenses revoked, perhaps Joseph should be prohibited from volunteering in any capacity at the church. FT agreed to reach out to the head of the Safe Environment program in the diocese to implement additional safeguards and prevent such incidents from happening again. My mother then mentioned that my father would be speaking with Joseph, but I immediately intervened and asserted that my husband and I would be the ones to have a conversation with him. Many of you pointed out that I should not have relied on my father to address this issue because Stella is my daughter, and I agree with that perspective entirely. I refuse to let my father handle this situation and make Joseph comfortable by simply telling him not to speak inappropriately anymore. I provided FT with my business card and asked him to update me after he speaks with Joseph and the head of the Safe Environment program, and to arrange a meeting between me, my husband, and Joseph. When we left the meeting, I told my parents, specifically my father, that what he did in minimizing this situation is exactly why so many women don't report things like this, and it was nothing short of sexual harassment of a minor. I told my father that he can still think Joseph is a nice old man, but that I would never be able to look at him the same way again, and I don't know if I can trust him with my kids. That was the gut punch he needed, because despite this new side of my father I'm seeing, he's always been a wonderful grandfather to all my kids. He owes Stella an apology, but she doesn't want one. She emphatically said she just wants to put this behind her and doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Regarding my brother, he sent me a non-apology apology via text this morning. It shouldn't go without saying I'm sorry for getting involved, and I wish I hadn't interjected myself in the situation. It's not my place, and I support whatever you want to do. I haven't responded because I know I will get angry with him again. I think I'll just let my husband deal with him. It is important to note that perspectives on how to handle the situation differed within the family. The protagonist felt strongly about taking immediate action and involving the authorities, while the father and brother downplayed the severity of the incident. The story highlights the challenges and tensions that can arise when family members have different viewpoints on sensitive matters. I never thought a simple costume could cause such a stir. It all started at a princess-themed birthday party where my daughter and the birthday girl unknowingly showed up dressed as the same character. Little did I know that this innocent coincidence would spark a heated debate among the parents, dividing our mom group chat. Was I a jerk for refusing to change my daughter's clothes? Here's how it all went down. I, 34 years old female, have 2 kids, 8 years old male and 4 years old female. My daughter's name is Aurora. My husband, 36 years old male, and I chose that name because it was slightly similar to my late father-in-law's name and worked well with our last names. It had nothing to do with the princess from Sleeping Beauty. Despite that, we have enjoyed that movie in the past, and ever since my daughter realized that she shares a name with a Disney character, Princess Aurora has been her favorite. Our family went to Disney World in July, and while we were there, we bought my daughter a Princess Aurora costume. She absolutely loves it and wears it whenever she has the chance. You know, 2 weeks back, Aurora's buddy from school had this princess gig for her birthday. It was a whole dress-up shindig, and of course my little Aurora, she's all about that life, dressing up, the sparkle, the whole 9 yards. So she's jazzed about rocking her fave princess getup to this party, and I'm like, why not? We get there, and would you believe it? The birthday girl herself, she's also done up as Princess Aurora. Now I'm standing there thinking, oh boy, here comes the drama. But nope, the birthday girl is over the moon. She's all, we're twinsies, and it's just pure cuteness overload. They're off in their own little world, and I'm chilling, thinking the costume thing's a non-issue. Fast forward half an hour, I'm with the other moms, just soaking in the grown-up quiet time, when the birthday kid's mom sidles up. She's like, hey, you got extra clothes for your Aurora? And I'm like, yeah, got the backup gear right here. Because let's be real, I'm always packing a spare. Kids are like adorable little mess machines. But then she drops this on me. She wants my kiddo to ditch the princess look. Something about a photographer and not wanting a clone of her daughter in the shots. Plus, she's fretting about potential jealousy over the whole shared name princess thing. Now, if the birthday girl had been bummed about the twinning situation, I'd have been all for switching outfits. But she wasn't. She loved it. And it didn't sit right with me, you know? Having my Aurora be the only one out of costume while all the other kids are living their best princess lives? Nah. So I lay it out for her. I'm polite but firm, like, I really don't think it's fair to my daughter, and all that. The mom's pushing, but I'm planted. And then the backup arrives. The other moms are giving me these nods like, you're good, and the lady finally backs down. Cut to this week, I'm at the school, picking up my crew, and who do I run into? Yep, the birthday girl's mom. She's still on about the party, saying how I ruined the whole shebang with the costume clash and how those pictures are forever tainted for her. It's a mess, man. But what can you do, right? Kids will be kids, and sometimes, so will the parents. Initially, I thought she was exaggerating, but now I'm starting to doubt myself. Our conflict has spread to the mom group chat we're both part of, and opinions there are divided. Some people believe that having two girls wear the same costume is not a big deal, while others think I should have changed my daughter's clothes. It is important to recognize that both perspectives have valid points. While the parent prioritized their daughter's happiness and felt it was unnecessary to change her clothes, the birthday girl's mother was concerned about the uniqueness of the photographs and potential jealousy. Ultimately, it was a subjective decision that depended on individual values and priorities. It is essential for all parties involved to engage in open and respectful communication to find a resolution that considers the feelings of both children and their families. When I stumbled upon a beat-up Bronco resembling my cherished teenage truck, I couldn't resist the chance to reclaim my past. Ignoring the college fund we had diligently saved for our baby, I impulsively maxed out my credit card and emptied our savings. Now, tensions rise as my wife and her family question my priorities, leaving me to justify my actions and defend the joy this Bronco brings me. So how to begin with this? I realize that on paper, I am totally the jerk. But when you dig deeper into my motivations, I'm hoping it's more of a gray area than anything else, and maybe even I did the right thing. When I was a teenager, my dad bought me a classic 1972 Ford Bronco. It was my true passion, and I don't recall a memory from high school that somehow doesn't involve that truck. Plus, my dad and I would spend hours and hours working on it together, and when we went through that father-son rough patch when I was teenager, it was always that Bronco that brought us back together. I made a huge mistake and sold the truck when I turned 19, and my dad died of a heart attack 2 months later. So while not logical, I've always felt a karmic connection between the two events. We had a baby in early February. She is our first and the light of my life. My wife is doing well, but she's back at work and she's realized that she hates all the daycares we've tried and really wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and she's still very hormonal from delivery, lack of sleep, and breastfeeding, so she's having a rough time and is angry a lot. I guess I need to say this. You know, about 2 weeks ago, I found myself cruising through the warehouse district of our little town, and there it was, a Bronco. Not just any Bronco, but one that could have been a twin to mine. At least before life and the road had its way with it. I had to pull over. Nostalgia's a funny thing. It just reels you in without asking for permission. So I'm standing there, taking in the sight of this old, beat-up beauty, when the owner pops out. He's a friendly guy, sees the look in my eyes, I guess, and offers to let me peek inside. And there's this thing my dad and I did when I had the Bronco. We glued a wheat penny under the dash, our quirky version of a security measure. I lean in, heart kind of doing a drum roll. And would you believe it? My penny, my dad's penny, right there. It's actually my old Bronco. The words just tumble out of me then, asking the guy if he'd think about selling it. Turns out he's got a buyer coming up from Colorado on I-25 no less, ready to hand over $21,000. My heart's doing backflips, panic, the whole circus, and I just blurt out, "What about $23,000? Right here, right now?" And the guy, he's straight as an arrow, tells me if I've got the cash, it's mine. Now I've been dragging my feet on setting up a $529 for my daughter. She's only a tiny little thing, 6 months old, and I've got this $12,000 in savings, a generous gift from my in-laws for her future education. Without missing a beat, I'm maxing out my credit card on Venmo, and my mom, bless her, she brings down a check for $4,000. And just like that, I'm behind the wheel of my old ride, driving it back to its rightful place in my driveway. It's like living a dream, you know? A dream where you don't really consider the waking up part. Sure, it's seen better days, and my wallet's pretty much crying at the thought of the work it needs, but it's mine. It's home. But not everyone's throwing a parade for me. My wife and her folks, they're seeing red. They think I've pulled a fast one on them, that I'm not living up to this real man image they've got, the kind of guy who'd lay everything on the line so his wife could be at home with the kids. And yeah, the money was earmarked for a college fund. I get it, I do. But my little girl's got her whole life ahead of her, and we've got 18 years to sort out that college fund. This Bronco, though, it's not just a car, it's a time machine, a memory preserver, a piece of my history that I thought was gone. And now it's a chance to build new memories with my kids, just like I did with my dad. To me, that's happiness. That's irreplaceable. And if I'd let that moment slip by, that Bronco would have been nothing more than a what if in my rearview mirror. Now, it's my joy, parked right there in my driveway. And I wouldn't change a thing, like I said on paper. Jerk, whole story, gray area. How do you guys see it? I had no idea this would go so one way. I guess I messed up. I talked with my mom, and she is basically going to buy the Bronco from me in order to refill the college fund and pay off the credit card. The $4,000 will be a gift, and she's going to give me whatever I need to restore it. She's always been awesome to me, and she'd rather the money be spent now than wait for me and my sister's inheritance. Sorry to get everyone so mad at me. I was thinking with my emotions and acted badly. While on the surface, his actions may seem selfish and irresponsible, there are deeper emotional and personal reasons behind his decision. The Bronco represents a strong connection to his past, particularly his relationship with his late father. This story highlights the complexities of personal desires, family dynamics, and the difficult choices individuals face when reconciling their past with their responsibilities for the future. In the midst of a challenging relationship, my partner's sudden request to stop using the pads took a bewildering turn when I discovered he had thrown them away. As tensions escalated, secrets were unveiled, revealing a shocking betrayal. Here's how it all went down. So there I was, in my teens, when the doctor dropped the term menorrhagia on me, and let me tell you, it's as heavy as it sounds. My periods were the nightmare kind, the ones where I'm counting the minutes in class before I had to dash to the bathroom. I mean, we're talking a pad and a tampon combo, and still, I'd be on a timer. It got so bad that my middle school principal had to ring up my folks. They were like, maybe she should just chill at home when it's like Niagara Falls. And I did, because what else could I do, right? Fast forward to now, and meds have been my knight in shining armor. They've made workdays doable and cut down the length of my personal red wedding. But here's the kicker. Nights are still a battlefield. I'm up every hour, on the dot, because if I don't, it's like the Hoover Dams burst in my bed. Sleep? What sleep? I'm on night shifts, so you can imagine how precious those Z's are to me. Now, enter my game changer. Puppy pads. Laugh all you want, but with these bad boys under me, I could actually catch some shut-eye without fretting about turning my bed into a crime scene. One pad, and I'm good for the night, sleeping like a baby. It's not about the pad, really. It's about that sweet, sweet peace of mind. But here's where the plot twists. I've been seeing this guy for nearly a year, right? Out of the blue, he's like, babe, those puppy pads? Gotta go. I'm there blinking at him because he never peeped a word about them before. I mean, I laid it all out for him when we got serious, and he seemed cool with it. Now, he's all embarrassed, saying he can't explain it to people because, hey, no dog, no need for pads, according to him. We hit a brick wall talking about it, so we let it simmer for a bit. But then, I'm digging through the closet for something totally unrelated, and guess what's missing? My stash of puppy pads vanished. And he's the magician behind the disappearing act. I didn't even have it in me to start round 2, so I just packed up and headed to my folks' place. My phone's blowing up now, him saying I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, and dropping the H-bomb hysterectomy like it's nothing. I just can't wrap my head around it. It's like, my body's been through the ringer enough, and he wants to go nuclear option? It's not just the pads, it's that they're the one thing making my nights manageable. And for him to just trash them without getting it, I mean, I get it. It's weird for him, but it's not about him, is it? It's about me getting through the night without turning into a sleep-deprived zombie. And if he can't get that, well, I don't know. It's a mess, and I'm just here trying to figure out if I'm the crazy one or if it's okay to want a little control over this part of my life. My ex has since asked if we could talk face-to-face, since he wants to know if I'm really going to throw away our whole relationship because of my period. Am I the jerk? The time between our confrontation and me leaving was less than a week, and I've been gone for about a week and a half now. After spending a few hours reading through the responses to my original post, I felt validated enough in my feelings that I reached out to my ex's sister instead of meeting him face-to-face as he had asked. She asked me to call her, and while I won't go into all the details of our conversation, she eventually admitted that my ex had been cheating on me. She only learned about it after we had already broken up because he had been complaining about me storming out. She didn't know how to reach me until I reached out to her. As far as she could figure out, my ex saw his other girlfriend whenever I was working nights. After hearing what I had to say, she thinks he probably invited her over one night when I had a pad prepared for when I got home in the morning, as I would do when I worked nights. She probably saw it, which led to him having to explain it to her. That's why he was so evasive about why he felt the need to explain the puppy pads. Since his birthday is coming up, she and I assumed he probably brought up this whole thing in the first place because he was planning to bring his other girlfriend over when I had to work and didn't want to risk me having a pad down again. Suffice to say, he is staying my ex. While I am a little upset that his sister didn't find a way to tell me about the other girl sooner, I don't blame her at all. Reflecting on the situation, it is clear that the issue of using puppy pads during the OP's period was merely a catalyst for uncovering deeper relationship problems and betrayals. It is essential to prioritize one's own well-being and seek a partner who supports and respects their needs. Moving forward, it is crucial to learn from this experience and establish open and honest communication in future relationships. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.